Thank you so much, Brittany. Just let me know when you can see my screen and we'll get going.
Yep, I can see your screen.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to welcome everyone today. I hope everyone is doing well and your families are doing well as well. So as Brittany said, my name is Tom Gabriel. I'm a senior solution consultant here at GSI. And what we're here to talk about today is robotic process automation, or RPA. And basically what that means is it's utilizing your technology and your ERP system to help you automate your business processes. So if you could think of your software as a robot, we want to be able to use your software in order to capture and interpret data and process transactions, manipulate the data, or in effect even trigger some type of response or some type of communication internally and externally of your organization so that you can become more self-sufficient. And when we talk about robotic process automation, it can be as simple as generating an automatic email message when something happens, or it can be as complex as layering in hundreds, if not thousands, of these scenarios so that as certain things are occurring and happening, other processes are engaged, initiated, et cetera, et cetera. And the goal of this is to eliminate those type of routine, tedious tasks that occur over and over and over again. More importantly, it is to help reduce the errors because of the quantity of data that organizations are now seeing coming into the business. And it's going to allow us now to utilize our people more efficiently, in that they're going to be able to focus on the more important questions at hand versus just a simple task. But let's not think that we can just throw these RPAs out there and not give serious thought as to how we should use them. We actually need to make sure that we design our functions and our processes around these. We have to plan for how we integrate them into the organization. But more importantly, because the human has been removed, we have to make sure that there's proper governance in what they're doing so that we, in effect, don't cause some other type of hardship where the organization, statutorily may be jeopardized or whatever. So when we looked at ERP systems in the past, turned around and they looked to layer in a bunch of different architecture and systems and job roles and third-party systems and industry best practices. They tried to look to grab all of that and to throw it into one big holistic solution. Now, on the surface, back in the day, that seemed fine. It's, one software package that sufficed for the entire organization, regardless of the discipline, and it integrated all of that information together into one free-flowing, service. But those packages, as time went on, more and more things needed to happen, and you needed to embed additional type of services and logic into these solutions. So they were great because it was one database, one common application and user interface that everybody in the organization can utilize. And it was meant to simply take a transaction, flow it through a system in a quote-unquote real-time manner so that you can do some planning and production and create some kind of customer response. Well, back in the day, when it started, that was fine. I mean, back in the 60s, it all started with inventory. Companies needed to understand where was my inventory, what was happening to it. So they started to build inventory control packages just for their inventory. But several years later, they realized, well, wait a minute, I have to take that raw material and I have to turn around and I have to manufacture something that my consumers want. So I need to understand how to do all that, how to plan all that. So in the 70s and 80s, while still geared toward inventory, it expanded in the sense of, wait a minute, I need to know what my consumers want. I need to know what my vendors can give me. I need to be able to work all that together. So ERP vendors started to build out their ERP systems to cross over into many other different kind of functional areas. And as that started to happen, each one of those functional areas became so robust that people needed to understand and grab information and make decisions based upon those individual, pardon the expression, silos of modules that were employed in an ERP system. Well, that was great. If you look at a study that was done in 2009, when these services and these ERP systems were being developed, the long-term vision was to simply be able to take an application, a process in the business, and to be able to have it fully aligned to create some type of improvement so that I can get added value within my environment, within my organization. Well, having a concise, consolidated ERP system allowed you to do that. But what ended up happening? While those ERP systems were great, they have a disadvantage too, because in order to get that one holistic solution, it was very time consuming to tie all the pieces together. And naturally, time is money, so they became very expensive. And as other modules started to be developed, they became unique in and of themselves. So in order to conform all the modules together, well, it was very difficult to do. Then naturally you had your dependence on one vendor. Whatever way your vendor went, that's the way you were forced to go. And while features were being delivered, because you were buying a module, you were pretty much constrained to take every single feature they had, thereby it might make it overly complex within your organization. And naturally, if you tried to buy or enroll other divisions or businesses, the scalability was very tough, because how do you roll in an Asian type of division with different kinds of regulations and rules into a system that was developed for the United States? So ERP systems, all of a sudden, they said, wait a minute, they're getting too constrained. Now throw technology in there. Throw the fact that you used to be tethered to an office, but now you're walking around with a tablet or a smartphone or whatever. You used to get data simply from somebody typing it in, but now you can get data from many different types of means or vehicles. Before, you had to be in one location to access your system. Now you can be anywhere in the world and access what you need to access. There's no longer a constraint to be in one physical location. And naturally, as we know, the data that we're getting today is astronomical. We're getting reams and reams and reams of information. So how do I turn around? How do I scale my workforce to be able to understand all of that information coming in? Where should I be looking? What should I be doing within my organization? So what happened? We went from a culture where it was a single threaded flow in an ERP system to systems where data is wide open and bidirectional, coming and going inside and out of the organization with no one single thread. We layer in the cloud and we say to ourselves, okay, not only is information internal, but information could be on the cloud. Information can be even in some other type of hosted environment. There's so many things we need to look at, and so many things that are disrupting our organization, that we just can't turn around and say it's what we see on the surface. And nor can we turn around and say, okay, what was the driver of what I'm looking at on the surface? We have to peel that onion away so much that we have to get to the root cause. We have to understand what's at the bottom of everything that's happening in our organization. So what's happened? ERP systems of the past that used to give me one holistic view and used to suffice for my entire organization, we're seeing that the value now is to have an ERP system where you can decouple things, but yet at the same time still have that ERP system as the core system of my organization, giving me that value that I'm looking for. So ask yourself a question. Are we in an evolution or are we in a revolution? Well, we are in a revolution, right? The first industrial revolution, that's when mechanization came about, water power, steam power. Then we had Henry Ford with the assembly line and electricity. Then the third revolution was computers and automation, being able to take all of that manual process and have the logic driven by the computer. Well, now we have these cyber physical systems where they're actually doing the work. But we're beyond that. We're beyond that fourth revolution. We're in a fifth revolution now. We're in that robotic process automation area. So if you look at evolution over time of ERP systems, we've gone from that traditional ERP system of a system of record and moved past the digital platform with the Internet of Things and cloud. We're in supervised ERP where there's robotic and natural language interaction. But more importantly, we are moving into an intelligent ERP realm where there's machine learning, decision making, et cetera, et cetera. So what do we need to do as an organization? What we need to understand is my ERP system. Where am I? And I'm throwing this slide up there because I want all of you now to look at this slide and say, where am I? Where was my ERP system generated? I can't tell you how many people I deal with that are still on XE or 8.11 or 8.12. Those systems are 14 years old. Now, some of you might be saying, well, Tom, no big deal. I'm only on release 9. That's only 2 release levels back. Well, release 9 was still 12 years ago. And then some of you might say, well, I'm on 9.1. That's not a big deal. Well, guess what? 9.1 is still 8 years old. And don't think that just because you're on 9.2 that you are consuming the most up-to-date technology and services. Enterprise One 9.2 Release 3 or Update 3 came out a year and a half ago. And again, these timelines for people on World that might be on World, these timelines are relatively the same depending upon how far back you go. But even if you're on Release 9.2 Update 3, we're talking 18 months. If you look at Oracle and where we are, Release 9.2 literally came out in 2015. Now, if you haven't been taking the updates, you're 5 years old. If you've taken the latest update, you're still 18 months old. Hopefully, you're taking the tools upgrades, because even though application enhancements are being made, the majority of all of this and where RPA is going is through the tools releases. So understand, where is your software? And as you wait, the longer and longer you wait, your business is going to decline because it's going to take you that much more effort to get that technology in your organization, to have your user community embrace that, to have your user community understand it, to support it. Because, you know, with change and people have to learn. So back in the day, most decisions in your ERP system still take several months or more to define and to come to closure. And when you wait those several months or more, you're still falling further and further behind because of what? Philosophy in Oracle of continuous delivery, okay? Now, the longer you wait, it's going to cost you more money. It's going to disrupt your process and culture even further. You're going to have higher efforts. You're going to have a loss of return on investment. You're going to introduce more risk of obsolescence. And naturally, you're going to fall behind your competition, because if they're staying with technology and upgrading, they're leveraging those fruits of labor quicker and more efficiently than you. So we have to understand that your ERP system is both your backbone and your front end functions together. And you have to understand that your system is trying to solve many different tangible and intangible issues within your organization. You need to have that better interfunctional data flow so that people can make decisions. You can turn around and manage your inventory. You can do your regulatory reporting. So you need to start automating processes. And management needs this information, reliable information, cross-functional areas, okay? So that's where Oracle's going. That's what's happening with JD Edwards. Your CFO, in the beginning, everybody thought, hey, sales orders, purchase orders, things that are happening in these other subsidiary systems, let's find a way to push the data into the general ledger so that the CFO, when he runs a balance sheet or he runs a P&L, he can get that subsidiary information out of the ledger. Well, that's really not the right way to do it, okay? Businesses in the past, that's what they tried to do. If they didn't have some kind of data warehouse, they just tried to cram everything into the general ledger for visibility by the CFO, controller, whatever. So it remained the central repository, the GL, not just for financial information, but for information across the functional areas. And we have to understand that ERP vendors started seeing this, so they started to give you better flexibility in how you created a structure, and in effect compounded the issue because they now made the general ledger an albatross where instead of just servicing that one functional area, it's trying to service a bunch of non-financial information that is stored in other subsystems within the ERP system. So look at your general ledger, right? And if you look at that, you're losing levels of detail and drill down capability. Remember that slide with the scuba divers, right? I'm only seeing the surface. But if I want to understand why a different product line really isn't selling by demographics, if I don't have that in the GL, I need to get it out of order entry, or I need to get it out of a system. What do I do to do that? Your chart of accounts becomes unwieldy. Instead of just needing the necessary financial information, you're embedding a bunch of other things that affect how you close your month. And most importantly, you get the issue of where's the single source of truth, right? Now you have the functional finance guy saying, well, this is the number, but then you have the other person in the operations area saying, well, no, this is truly what it is. So don't utilize the GL, right? It becomes an impediment toward your progress. You have to skinny down that general ledger, let it be whatever it needs to be. You'll find out that if you don't do that, you're going to have other organizations that have the technology to get the information they need. They're going to leapfrog you, and they're going to become the leaders versus yourself. So utilizing robotic process automation helps streamline all this data gathering and analysis activity across the organization. You need to focus on the approach where the user needs to explore and get at the information they need to get at where it is. So try to get away from using your GL as a data warehouse and things of that nature. So if we think about that, if you do that, then you get back to what's referred to as a thin ledger approach, right? That's your better alternative. Let the people get the data from where the data resides. It alleviates that disconnect, right? So I close my sales order system, but then all of a sudden I realize there's an adjustment that needs to be made, and I make it in the general ledger. Well, what ends up happening? Now, if I ran a report out of the sub ledger, which is supposed to support the financials, that data doesn't match anymore. And the more and more systems you tie together like that, the more the issue grows. So what do? Implement that robotic process, implement and use the tools within your system. Implement in JD Edwards what they refer to as user-defined objects, right? Things like queries, things like grid format and form extensions, right? Composite application framework, one view watch list, E1 pages. More importantly, where Oracle has gone with this RPA process is the orchestrator. Orchestrations allow you to automate data flow back and forth inside, outside your organization. It lets you do notifications. And orchestrations like earlier on when I said you can tie hundreds, if not thousands of quote unquote bots together, i.e. application processes together, Orchestrator allows you to do that. It allows you to say that if this condition is true, go here. If not, go there. And then when you go somewhere, do this and then do something else. It alleviates all that mundane task. It literally makes your ERP system more real time than what it is today. So when we think about a C-level executive, my C-level executive, he wants a modern experience. He doesn't want a green screen. He doesn't want to be tethered to the office. He doesn't want to have a CRT terminal versus a flat screen. He wants or she wants to be proactive versus reactive. They want to be able to look at information, make a decision, and move forward versus waiting to see what happens. They need the collaboration both in and outside the organization. They need their vendors and suppliers to be able to understand what's happening in their organization so that they can turn around now and have them provide what they need to provide. Again, real time versus quote near real time. And they need this information anytime and anywhere, especially in light of today's situation and what's happening, right? Self-sufficiency. I don't need to wait for IT to create a report. I don't need to wait for IT to drive and generate a report. I want to be able to get that operational intelligence across my whole entire enterprise. Because this statement holds true. It's great if you're on 9.2, the latest release and the latest tools release, it's great. But if you're still doing business as usual, and you haven't embraced Orchestrator, you haven't embraced Cafe One, you haven't embraced, composed pages, you're still not benefiting from the technology that you have. So Oracle came out with continuous delivery. That's part of continuous innovation. As an organization, you need to embrace continuous innovation. That is the ability to have continuous delivery of software and your organization's continuous adoption of that. When you do both, you are now part of a continuous innovation organization. So delivery is the vendor giving you new features, functionality, capabilities periodically on a regular basis. And those can be either incremental changes or cumulative changes, but they're coming out on a continuous, frequent basis. And on the flip side, your continuous adoption is you taking those in implementing them on a somewhat regular basis. Now, that may or may not align to how the vendor gives it to you, but you still need to do it. Because again, it's going to take you less time, less money to continually innovate versus not. If we look at this slide right here, and this is going back to 2014, right before 9.2 came out. If you look at the top arrows, that's the areas that, from a technology perspective, Oracle and ERP vendors were looking at. Starting back with big data and information strategy, then it moved into mobility, and then it was machine to machine, right, M to M. Then all of a sudden it was, wait a minute, now we need to get a better user experience. And now in 2018, we started with that process automation, letting automated processes do the task instead of the person. And if you look underneath the brownish bar, you see the type of technology enhancements that were embedded within the tools release. So for those of you that aren't even using queries or watch lists or Cafe One, those things came out 5, 6 years ago. Orchestrator came out 4 years ago. And I can't tell you how many organizations are just starting to contemplate using that. And if you look at 2019, now we're talking about containers and containerization and an elasticity of our applications and systems. But even though the technology is still changing, underneath the blue bar, you can see that Oracle is still developing and delivering enhancements to your applications. Continuous enhancement, right? That whole process. So for your organization to truly become one of these firms, you need to understand that you have to integrate your people, process, and tools. You have to understand that your systems now are going to be increasingly used to monitor, analyze, process information. And you need to put in that mechanism where you see what that technology is and understand what you need to implement and how quickly you need to implement it to maintain that competitive advantage. So we talked about the UDOs. Here's the original 6, and look at the tools release it came out on, right? All these came out on tools 9.2. Then we started to get composed pages and images. But look at Orchestrator. Orchestrator came out tools 9.2.2. And within there, you have rules and whitelists, but you also have the ability for searching and notifications and form extensions. So you may be on applications 9.2. You may be on a tools release of 9.0. You need to continually update everything, your applications and your tools. Because what RPA is it's using Orchestrator, notifications, and these other UDOs to give your C-level people the information they want. It's utilizing all this so that this is what your C-level person sees. Ask yourself, you want to be able to get instant, near real-time information, augmented analytics. You want to be in that right-hand side of this graphic. So you as an organization have to turn into a citizen data scientist. You, by doing this and by implementing RPA, you're going to alleviate customizations. You're going to minimize different configurations. You're going to allow people to have personalization by taking this continuous adoption. You're going to lower your costs to do that. So, benefits of incorporating this UXOne philosophy, this RPA philosophy: you eliminate all these customizations by continuous adoption. You get based content for a better user experience, and you end up letting the users take control of how they need to see work. You decrease your cost of ownership by increasing your ROI. So, balance your labor and your automation. You don't want to have your labor be far on the right and your technology and automation be the lower left. You want to balance that out so you can increase the overall operational efficiency of your organization. You have to understand what do you need to do in order to get there. So, allow users the personalization they need. Give them the tools that they can use to get where they have to get. In 2020 and beyond, these are the technologies that are going to come out and create that intelligent digital mesh. The intelligence aspect, the digital aspect, and the mesh aspect, all of these technologies in one form or another need to be embraced within your organization for you to turn around and succeed. All of this is the RPA toolbox that will allow your organization to become more automated. So ask yourself a question. What is better for my C-level people? What I used to get in the past, that little dot matrix report, or some type of KPI and dashboard? What is better for them? To still suck data into Excel and run macros and create a report? Or is it better if I give them a dashboard with reports and visualization, interactive reporting where I can refresh the screen and get real-time information and do analytics, where I can turn around and search and explore? What makes more sense? Does it make more sense to get one report off of one system, or be able to get visibility across the enterprise into whatever data I needed to see? So, having said all of that, let me jump on and show you the type of thing that you can do for your C-level people. Now, I'm going to sign on as the CFO, okay? And when I sign on as the CFO, what you're going to see is you're going to see my ability as the CFO to get at a lot of information. So give me 1 second. Let me move this little thing that's in my way here, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so if I look at this screen right now, this is a simple landing page, right? That could be developed, and right now it's for the general accounting manager. But if I go up to my user ID and I look, and as I scroll down here, I see a little box of roles. And I have a general accounting role, I have a accounts receivable manager, payable manager, credit manager, collection manager. In effect, a way for the CFO is to give them an ID and give them access to all these other roles, i.e. information that only the general accounting manager would see. So that is a way. All right? So now let's just look at this and say to ourselves, what other type of information can the CFO get? If I look, I could come down here and I could see this manage notifications. And when I open manage notifications, notice it has this message center. So I could turn around, and when I open the message center, I'm going to see several things. I'm going to see a notification list versus a work center list. And what's the difference? The work center list is the things that I'm doing, i.e. the jobs I submitted, the other information that I'm acting in the system with, that's what I'm looking at here. When I look at the notification list, I'm actually looking at those types of things where I set up some type of orchestration to say, when a certain event happens, I need to be notified. And if I look right now, these are sequenced by various weeks or days, right? But if I come in and look at one, notice that I have notifications because I'm the general manager to approve payee control changes or to enter time. So if I look at payee control changes, I got a notification from the system that I needed to approve something. If I click on this approval, it will launch the application and will allow me to go in and do the work I need to do, so that now when I'm done and say okay, several things are going to happen, i.e. the payee control table will get updated, and or maybe another notification will be sent to the individual that changed it to say that, hey, they approved it. So a very simple RPA process, right? I can turn around and do the same thing to, my time entry. I can open that up and I can look at a time entry reminder, and when I click on it, it will launch time entry and I could put in my time. So again, notification, an RPA process that's simply driven by an event happening. I need to do something, I do it, and either A, it can be over and done with, or B, it can invoke another type of automation where it goes somewhere else to somebody else, okay? Maybe when I approve that payee control, it goes to the treasurer, and now the treasurer says, okay, now I can turn around and I can enter some wire information into the bank system, whatever, okay? So another thing, all of these notifications that I just talked about, when you go and you look, you have this field here that says my subscriptions. When I look at my subscriptions, these are all of the notifications that I may have created. And I'm turning around and I'm saying to myself, these are mine. How often are they running? This one happens to run every day, every weekday at 8 in the morning. I can have an integration for EDI, for sales order creation, that runs every 5 minutes, right? These are the type of automated processes I can have. I can turn around and instead of looking at just the ones I created, I can turn around and I can say, well, wait a minute, which ones were assigned to me by other people? So I can open up the ones that have been assigned to me. And it's the same kind of thing. So these are automated processes that are happening. Now, what else can I do? Let's look at right here, right? All of these, manage notifications, manage searches, recording a process for orchestration, managing my content for composed pages or regular pages. All of these are UDOs, right? And you have to understand that you may not get these, you may not see these, you may only get them to view. It all depends upon your organization and security. So again, this example I'm showing you is, hey, the CFO had a page created for themselves or a role created for themselves where they get access to all these other things and they can just access what they can access. So I can have watch lists, I can have one view reports, I can have springboards to other areas and applications, I can embed URLs for other websites, I could embed a third-party system, a link to that system so I can navigate out there. many different things you can do. If I look at my financials, this is another example of what you can do for the CFO. You can create, instead of these banners at the top, you can create little swim lanes. And within the swim lanes, little icons to say, how do you have to navigate? So again, the same kind of thing. You can have them initially showed up as collapsed. So I might have a page that has 6 or 7 swim lanes. And if I'm dealing with receivables, I open it up and I do what I need to do. Again, another way to use a quote UDO, and inside of it, some other embedded process where you can do that. So let's look about, credit managers, right? If I look at this credit manager screen and I see that I have credit review overrides, or I have sales orders on a credit hold. So again, let's say I am the, C-level for sales. And in my organization, because it's a thin organization, I might need to replace the orders on credit hold. Well, right from here, I could turn around, I can launch the application, I can release what I need to release, and I can be done with it. And the nice part about it is, with orchestration, I can embed an orchestrator at the row level that says, once I approve this and release it off a credit hold, then a notification can go to the actual credit person that's responsible, or can go to customer service and say that the credit hold was released. Let's say there's another interim process that has to happen. You can embed these automated processes at that transaction level so that you can turn around and do what you need to do. What about all of this information, right? I can turn around now and I can expand this one area, and I can see this is write-offs by customer and by reason code. Here's all my reason codes. And if you scroll down, you can see that there's multiple customers that are going to be affected by this, right? So let me see where my scroll, how come my scroll button doesn't work? Well, what are you gonna do? So anyway, if I scroll down, you would have seen that I have multiple customers down below. But the other nice thing you can do with this is this. I can turn around, hover over a piece, see what it's for. I could turn around and say, wait a minute, I'm not interested in this piece, and it'll refresh my screen. Notice that it de-highlighted. I can highlight it again and it'll come back. The nice part about it is real time. This is real time when I ran this right here at this time. If I waited a few minutes and I said, oh, let's refresh it, now you'll notice the time has changed and I'm looking at it after other activity has happened, right? I can turn around and from this one report, I can see that it was built off a query. I can turn around now and I can say, well, wait a minute, I want to see the same information, but I want to see it, based on something else, right? So with all of this, we can just turn around, get out of here. Now, what happens if my invoice trend by payor, right? I can pop this out, the same kind of animal, right? If I hover over a category, it'll highlight the graph. If I click on the graph, it'll launch the application. I can turn around here and I can say, wait a minute, instead of looking at that, let me look at OVR analysis. And when I say okay, now it changes. Again, more real time. So this is using the whole RPA, UDO type of concept for people to go and do what they need to do. Now, if I look at this, once it comes back, the other thing I'll be able to see is once this detail is loaded, right, I can come in here now And I actually can go in, and from this report, I can actually launch the application and see all the information. And notice here's my query that I was running, right? Up in the upper right-hand corner. Notice I still have all my hover text capability, right? Where I could see additional information. This allows a user to turn around and just be in one place and not have to worry about navigating all over. Now, we talked about the CFO having multiple rows assigned to him for him to do this information. You can just as easily give him all of that on one page. So if he needed to see some financial reports, right, he could turn around and he can launch his expense analysis with drill down, and he can actually get his dashboard now or his KPI of departmental expenses. All of these things I can drill down and get to the detail. I can click on one of these components and it'll change all the other graphs, right? Again, I can also embed some orchestrations in that. I can do other things like work orders, where I can create a report for someone that will actually turn around now and not only talk about all of the work orders and different type of activities and where they are, actually create journal entries and actually say, this is what you need to do, this is where you need to book various entries to record information for your work orders. So again, very powerful things that you can do within your organization. So with that, question becomes, what do you do to get there? What do you do to utilize this? You have to understand what is your need and what is the solution available to you. You have to understand, is my infrastructure, hardware, people, etc., capable of supporting all this? Am I on the latest release? Am my subsidiary or my third-party systems capable to be at the minimum technical requirements that I need? How do I phase this in and accept it in the organization? And who's going to own it going forward? Who's going to continue to develop it? Do I need to elicit a company to help me with managed services? Can I achieve my 3 keys of software usability, software architecture for ongoing corporate viability? You need to know, is the organization up for the challenges and are your resources engaged? Do you have the expertise to manage the system, and can you adapt to the requirements? Because you need to get here. You need to not only get to citizen developer, you need to get to the citizen technologist, and you need to get to the automation where your machine can detect, decide, and do. So there's a tool in the latest tools release, or in starting in 9.2, there's a tool called the Customizer Analysis Report. This is a tool that you can run that will look at your modifications in the software and tell you what modifications can go away by utilizing some of these UDOs. So to get an effective RPA implementation, make sure your RPA is in your whole development life cycle. Don't forget there's going to be an impact on people. Create a center of excellence to understand what technologies you should be putting in play. Make sure that you're compliant, because you don't want to have your organization, fall out of statutory requirements. Your project needs to have governance. Do not look to create so many that it becomes a burden. Avoid poor design. Make sure that IT is involved. While they may not need to do it, they still need to understand what it is you want to do and understand that impact and control the expectation. So if you need help doing that, any of you within the next 21 days that emails us, emails me, whatever, we will offer you training on how your organization can utilize all of these UDOs and we will give it to you at a discount. So again, within the next 21 days, if you want an overview, if you want education as to how you can layer them in best practice, reach out to us and we'll help you. So with that, I'm going to toss it back to Brittany. Hopefully Brittany is still on.
I'm here. Can you see my screen?
All right. Yes, I can.
All right,
well, I see you.
Yep, that's me. That's it. Thanks, Tom. And now I'm just going to cover a few follow-up items from the webcast. Our webcast today is part of GSI's free ongoing educational webcast series on JD Edwards. Our upcoming webcasts are listed on the screen. To view our most up-to-date schedule, you can also go to getgsi.com/JD-Edwards/webcast. And we actually do have one coming up on March 31st that's listed here on cybersecurity. Check out our ERP Talk, which is our problem-solving forum where you can get your JD Edwards and other enterprise application questions answered. Stay connected with us on social media. All of our handles are currently listed on the screen. You can see our most up-to-date webcast, events, industry insights, and so much more. GSI also provides free educational resources for JD Edwards community, including our weekly educational webcast, our monthly newsletter called GSI Insider, the online resource center where you can access our on-demand webcasts, white papers, etc., and on-site and virtual workshops. If you would like to sign up for our weekly email reminders for upcoming webcasts, our monthly newsletter, or create an account to access our resource center, go to getgsi.com, go to resources and events on the main menu, select JD Edwards, and then you can select the appropriate link on the right. And now I am actually going to hand it back over to Tom for our Q&A session.
Thank you, Brittany. Again, if anybody has any questions, just feel free to click on the question panel and enter your question. Right now, what I'd like to say is, while I'm waiting for some questions, in today's environment and what's been occurring over the last 2 to 3 months, organizations are starting to get constrained as to the fact that people are now working remotely, and things that used to be handled on premise and things of that nature are getting a little more difficult to do. And GSI as an organization, we're just reaching out to all if our clients as well as non-clients, and we're offering assistance in the fact of helping you set up remote workforces and remote technologies and things of that nature to help you in today's day and age. We're also reaching out and offering IT as a service and things of that nature. So just understand that, you may not be a client of ours, you may be a client of ours, but we are cognizant of the issues that organizations are going through. We ourselves, we are a remote organization, so we've been doing this for the 15 years we've been in business, and we're just here to help people. So with that having been said, again, RPA, robotic process, right? Using the tools you have for people to go outside of their one quote unquote siloed operational area and be able to bring in and review and look at information, be contacted about information sooner versus later. That's what it's all about. Even though you're on 9.2, and even though you think you're current, you may not be. You still may be 3-5 years old. And the technology that has been coming out within the tools releases of Oracle, again, make sure that is available for your organization, number one. And number two, understand what it is and expose it to your people, because Oracle now delivers everything locked down. Even though you take a tools release, people don't see it. People don't necessarily know what it is. So work with an organization, work with a partner that not only will keep you current and get you that continuous innovation you need, but also will help you understand what it is you're getting and how you could employ it within your organization. So with that, Brittany, I don't see any type of questions there. I just want to wish everybody good health and good luck moving forward. And with that, I guess we're done. And if you need anything, you have my email address. Just shoot me an email.
Perfect. Thanks, Tom. And thank you, everybody, for attending the presentation.
Thanks all.